A pleasant evening to all. The PG Department of English, JAYARAJ ANNAPACKIAM College for Women, Autonomous Periyakulam is crossing the threshold, witnessing the monumental celebration of the Golden Jubilee. Wanting to connect you all with our intellectual hotspot, we launched this literary cornucopia webinar series, and it's a delight welcoming you all for the seventh session of the webinar series on E-Colonialism. Prayer lays hold of God's plan and becomes the link between His will and its accomplishment on earth. Let us begin today's session with a prayer song followed by scripture reading and prayer.
Bless the Lord, my soul. Worship His holy name.
A reading from the book of Psalms, chapter 111, verses 1 to 3. Praise the Lord. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart in the company of the upright in the congregation. Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. Full of honor and majesty is his work, and his righteousness endures forever. Let us praise the Lord. Thanks be to God. Prayer. Mighty God, protector and provider, we come before you, praising and thanking you for all the good things you have done to us. Lord, we seek your insight and wisdom that helps us walk in the straight path. Let us lean on you with all our heart instead of relying on our own imperfect understanding. Give us clear guidance, Lord. As we submit ourselves to you, we know that you will direct our paths and we confide in you. This we ask in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
A small cheer and great welcome to the merry feast. I shall invite Dr. G. Patricia, head of the department, to welcome the virtual gathering.
Warm greetings from JAC to distinguished professors and aspiring scholars who have joined us this evening. Today marks the seventh lecture of the literary cornucopia. I am extremely delighted to be the host for the evening and welcome you all. Before we begin this webinar, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you who sincerely joining us for the third week of the series and making it successful. This event would have been impossible without the constant support of each and everyone who connects with us virtually. Even though the webinar series marks the celebration of our department, it also allows us to meet the great, young, brilliant minds of the country with a global audience. Today, amidst us, we have Dr. Melwin from Bishop Heber College, Trichy. He has spent his career inspiring many aspiring intellectuals in classrooms and at seminars through effective classes with his own digital innovations. Keeping in mind the interest of aspiring researchers, is going to focus on e-colonialism. On behalf of the management and the organizing committee, it's my privilege to welcome you, sir. I welcome all the participants once again. We are truly delighted with your presence. Thank you.
Knowledge is power and information is liberating. Here we are to forage on the emerging new cultural theory, e-colonialism, which is driven by the evolving global media system. To delve into the concepts of e-colonialism and politics, of the day, Dr. Melvin, Assistant Professor of English, Bishop Heber College, Trichy, and former head of the Department of English, St. Jerome's College, Nagarcoil. Sir has an additional qualification of postgraduate diploma in English language teaching, MA in mass communication and journalism, and MA in human resource management. Doctor was on the contextualized perspectives of C.S. Lewis' Chronicles of Narnia. His area of specializations are eco-criticism and post-colonialism. He has a teaching experience of 12 years, delivered 9 lectures on eclectic range of subjects including EIP, personality development, and soft skills. He has published 19 articles in reputed journals and organized 3 national level seminars, including one face-to-face with writer Rama. His passion for literature, poetry, music, and photography is immense. He is an avid reader, eloquent speaker, critical thinker, and inspiring teacher, explorer of novelty, and a genuine human being committed to lifelong learning. It's our privilege to have such an eminent and erudite professor amidst us to share his deliberations on colonialism. I request Dr. S. Melvin to take over the session.
Thank you, Ms. Merlin, for those nice and generous words. Hope I live up. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, you're audible.
Let me share the screen. Respected Reverend Sister Dr. Queensley Jayanti, the Secretary of JAYARAJ ANNAPACKIAM College for Women, PERIYAKULAM, Reverend Sister Dr. Jaysarani, the Principal, Dr. Patricia Alfin Nirmala, the Head of the Department of English, Mrs. Angelin Swarna, the Coordinator of this Golden Jubilee webinar series, the Literary Cornucopia, Ms. Sahaya Merlin, the convener of today's program, Dr. Josephine, the organizing secretary, revered and respected teachers across nation, and all the eager and scholarly scholars. Good evening and greetings from Bishop Heber College. I'm so thankful to the department for having given me this wonderful opportunity to meet you all virtually today with this topic, E-Colonialism. I'm sure that the concept of colonialism is not a far-fetched entity, right? So I don't think we'll have difficulty in comprehending the idea of colonialism. It is one of the most significant socio-political phenomenon to shape the course of human history, right? To define the essence, colonialism is a practice or policy of control by one people or power over other people or area, often by establishing colonies with the aim of economic dominance. Okay, so to make things simpler, probably, to define things simpler, let me draw your attention to a situation, right? Imagine that you have built a beautiful house. You've been working on building this house for a very long time, and with so much joy, with so much passion, you've made sure that things are going well. Finally you've built this house and you are living in a very peaceful way, right? And suddenly one day what happens is you get a visitor. And the visitor aspires to spend a couple of days in your house as a guest, right? And you're okay with that. You accommodate, you're okay with that, and you allow the person to be in your house. As days go by, what happens is, he has no interest of getting out of the house, and he likes to prolong his stay in our house, in our house. He's not just staying there. Now he is also trying to give some money for the household expenses. All right, he's also giving some money, and things are going good. Life is fine, great. And slowly, this guy comes with new ideas. He says, this is your house. You have built with so much passion. You've got so much of things which you like. A lot of small interior decorations, and everything is cool. You are happy about it. And this guy comes and tells you, hey, listen, this particular chair, that too in this end, no, that's not the place to be. You'll have to change to this particular side. Change it. And then he says, this curtain, this is not the right color. Go for yellow, right? So he, according to his whims and fancies, slowly he, changes and asks you to alter your house. And after some months, what happens is the entire process, the kind of lifestyle which you have experienced in the past is slightly getting changed now. Now you are living, but then when you look back at your own life, when you just think of your own life, you clearly understand that it's no more your life. It's no more your life. You are somehow living somebody else's life. So you're thinking about the past, peaceful, happy ambience, which you were experiencing in the past, and gone. Now, to one extent, you're not complaining also. You're not complaining because you're comfortable. You're living fine. Things are going good. This particular person who has come to abide in your house has changed so much of things in your house, and it looks good now. Like you're somehow living. After some probably months or weeks, this particular person gets out. All right, so he says, okay, I've been living here for quite some time. It's time for me to leave. Okay, he leaves. And after 2 or 3 months, what happens is, few other people come and they notice that your house is absolutely beautiful. So serene an ambience, so beautiful an ambience, and you don't have any, the particular persons, couple of guys who came here, they were thrilled. They were so fascinated by the simplicity of this house, the beauty of this house, the place where it is surrounded. Probably you would have even planted a lot of plants, flowers. You had your share of joy, and suddenly this guy comes now, and he doesn't have any intention of going polite with you. What he does is he forcefully enters your house. He gets into your house without warning, and almost he throws you out of your house. By force, he is like throwing you out of your house. You don't have any option because that guy looks powerful. You really don't have any option now because he is really solid and a lot of weapons. You're forced to get out of your house. Right. Uh, just a situation, like it's not going to happen, don't worry. So, but then it has some archetypal image, isn't it? So we have been in this colonized state for quite some time, right? I'm going to draw your attention to two different types. Already I have explained, but still, let me give you two different perspectives of this colonial, empire building, right? Let's start. So the first one, it's about the okay. So I'll be giving you two different variations on the trends of empire building, right? The first point being the military conquest. You remember in your house, the second person who came, he didn't have any soft corner for you. He didn't want you to live in that particular house. Instead, he plunged, so he came in by force, and you didn't have any option. So that is this military kind of colonization, right? So maybe like when we think about it, when did it start? When we think of our past history, we understand that this military conquest was the first era. If we want to talk about the colonization, it's this military conquest. So long back, during Greece, your Roman period, and it had its expansion during. I think someone's mic is on. Mr. Karthik, can you help? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Kind of you. So yeah. So then came the Roman. They started to colonize wherever they go. They wanted to capture the place. Great. And this particular military colonialism can also be called as settler colonialism. They came and they settled, right? So their intention was not just to replace the existing population. You guys were there, no? We were there. Their intention was not literally to eradicate or pull ourselves away from that particular place, but they also wanted to explore the natural resources. They wanted to make sure that they get labor, they get manpower, so that they could build their capitalists, they could build their own empire, right? And we understand, after the 17th century, 18th century, we have Britishers, and mostly they managed to colonize even 75% of the entire universe. So lots of violence were there during the process of this colonization, this conquest. So many exploitations were there, genocides were there, and of course, they managed to conquer. The second type, probably I did give you that illustration when we talked about that small house. Yeah, I mean, mostly they also took the native people as slave, right? So we have so many thought process behind the slavery, anti-slavery movements, but then I'm not getting into that. Okay, so the second force, probably we are going to call that as mercantile colonization, colonialism. This is the second trend, wherein what happens, they focus here is to seek soil and toil. They also need labor. They also need the land, right? It's not just the land. They wanted the land to be tended according to their whims and fancies. Okay, so this was the second era of colonization, right? And we understand that this was so eminent even during the 20th century, mid 20th century, right? So they were so much interested because of cheap labor, because of the kind of a raw material they got from the place, and the import exports, like they came with their uh, products, and they made sure that they get the best out of the conquered lands. So you call it Asia, you call it Africa, you name it as Caribbean, Americans, like all these people were the objects of conquest by the Europeans. Europeans, not just English people, the French, Great Britain, you call it Spain, Portugal, and you have European people, they started to colonize, so that they have this mercantile things are happening, the products are being exchanged. Great. And they've been enforcing also, right? They got something, and they've been imposing a lot of tyrannical rule, but then they didn't have any thought process. It didn't even it didn't even get to their head about the mentality of the people who were colonized. And but then there is one another interesting thing which I believe you should know. They thought that they are doing the colonizers and the colonized a favor, right? They thought, by colonizing them, you're doing some favor. That is the kind of thought process they had. Okay, quickly, let's jump into this electronic colonialism. We've been talking about colonization, and I'm sure that those things, were not very far-fetched from us. We know it. So what exactly is this electronic colonialism? Right? I believe the picture in itself will be telling you some story, isn't it? I believe the screen is also visible. It talks about, or else like it explains how mass media is leading a new concept of empire, right? Electronic colonization, it talks about how mass media, they are leading the entire thing with a new concept of empire building. They are colonizing, right? It's not going to be something which is based on military power or something to do with land acquisition, but it's all about controlling the mind, right? A totally new perspective of colonization. When the second guy came to your house, he never gave you any chance like this, right? He wanted to get your land. He wanted to get your house. He simply threw you away. But here, it's about mind, right? Once again, yeah. So this is the new concept of empire that has got to do with the psyche, psychological or mental empire, right? So it collectively influences the mind, one's attitude, one's value system, one's language, and you become a completely different person, right? So let's see. Let's quickly move on, and let's try to understand how really this electronic colonialism is going to influence us, right? So I want you people to remember this name, Thomas McPhail. He is the one who coined the term electronic colonialism, right? Thomas McPhail is a Canadian critic. Okay, so this guy is the one who initially talked about the impact of repeated mass media messages, right? Repeated mass media messages and how it's going to affect one's mind, right? So maybe gone are the days when during the time of industrial revolution, you had so many mercantile, colonization, right? And they sought largely about having labor, materials, and about the land. But then now we are going to talk about the mind and you being as a global consumer, you as an individual, like we as a global consumer, right? So electronic colonialism or colonial theory, one second, it looks at, here we have the definition, right? We have a definition, it says, it looks at how to capture the minds and to some extent, the habit of a consumer, the personal traits of a consumer, right? You call it through advertisements, through so many social networking platforms. What now really happens is it influences us to look at things from a different perspective, look different, think different, and to act differently. You remember the first example which I gave you when I talked about the house example? You have somebody and they are now labeling the parts, and you are supposed to simply follow. You don't have any other options left. They influence you in such a way that they want us to look the way they expect us to look, right? So they wanted us to think in their fashion and act accordingly, right? So Thomas McPhail is the one who clearly talks about the impact of these advertisements, the repeated mass media's messages, right? So let's see how let's see how the mass media. Okay, whatever I'm going to share here now is not going to be something very remote from us. We know that because we're living in that era. We are absolutely living in that era. Yeah, of course, we've been colonized, right? We are still being colonized. We are still in that era. And the things which I'm going to share, is not going to be a far-fetched one. It'll connect directly to our hearts because we are still in that. Gone are the days of the culture. We had a rich heritage of culture, right? The past, we had a beautiful culture. I'm not blaming that we don't have that culture now. We do have the culture. We also have value systems. We also have integrity. But then, like we are now looking things from a different perspective. Let's see how that is. So initially, how the culture was formed. Probably our grandparents, your forefathers, your parents, they might have taught us some value system. They might have taught us how to behave, how to be accountable, how to be supportive, how to give respect to elders, how to talk, how to express your potentiality, how to be honest. They showed you ways, right? They gave us some model for us to follow. And we were part of that system. I mean, I'm talking about before the influence of these guys, before electronic colonialism came into place. The kind of a harmony which we experienced, the kind of a bond which we experienced with the family members, is missing now. It's missing now. It's changing, the cultural patterns are changing. We're not finding any static as we were, as our fathers were. Things are changing. Things are changing. And if we are going to look things deeply, if we are going to analyze things deeply, we'll clearly understand that because of electronic influence, lots of things are being changed. We, as an individual, I'm not talking about anyone else. I'm not talking about some collective, even collective unconscious, collective unconscious will fit in, right? But then let's talk individual. Let's talk about how the culture we find in the multimedia world, right? The culture which we experienced in our own lives had its own joy, had its own, but then now, look at it. The shared media culture which influences perceptions and values, right? So what's happening now? What exactly is happening now? Because of, right, the culture conveyed in this multimedia world, it influences your thought process, it influences your perspective. Talk about films, Hollywood films, maybe series, web series. People are so glued to that, isn't it? Korean dramas, talent shows, of course, so many other things like video games are there, internet, there's so many apps. Collectively, what really has happened here is we have the culture of this electric era has displaced or changed, altered the previous cultural values. Just let's bring one another example to our mind. In our house, probably when our children, they are in the front room, if somebody comes, maybe your relative, maybe your uncle, the first thing our kids do is they go to a different room. They simply move. They simply move. I mean, when we look at the past, we had some kind of a connect with family members. I mean, the elders showing that kind of a respect. Things are changing because our kids are now with mobile phones all the time, right? The value system is being compromised. And what about language? As teachers, we also have so many students here. So as teachers, I believe you will be able to connect with what I'm trying to say. We are evaluating their answer scripts, right? So the SMS scripts are inside. You could really have a shock for your life when we read Tanglish in English paper. Lifestyle has changed. Look at the costumes. Look at the way we behave with people. The habits, they are changed. Everything is now in line with the Westerner's perspective of life, right? Somebody's perspective of life. A powerful person's perception of life, point of view of life. We replicate them blindly. We try to copy them, failing to understand that we ourselves, okay, so, I'm not trying to be giving advices and all, right? So let's cut it now. So there has been a change. We have change in lifestyle, we've changed in habits, we've changed in activities, and of course, the family rituals, the things which we enjoy in family, things are the same, right? Okay, just let's analyze few other things. We've been wearing masks these days, but I'm going to ask you people to imagine the real drama masks. When we were child in the previous, the gen, we were like kids, we were like kids. And when we became a teacher, we were like teacher. When we became an athlete, we were like athlete. When we became a mother, we were like mother. Like now, what happens is a 16 talks like 17, or else like at least 50, maybe 40, right? So a kind of loss of innocence, right? You have, we, have changed the mentality of our generation because they are glued to the electronic, they've been following some other custom, they've been following some other patterns. The media now, what it does is it becomes the veil. It becomes that mask, it becomes that veil, and we look things from that particular perspective rather than understanding our own glory. Like we started to look into the perspective of people who be powerful, rich, in power, right? We simply watch and do as they have, been acting and doing, right? So quickly, the same kind of a culture we're talking about here. And this is a new culture. The electronic, the gadgets, and the apps, they control us. They give us a new outlook altogether. They spread the global flow of words, like we replicate them. We try to follow them, losing our own identity. Right? Okay. Is that all? Is that all? Like we see something and we fancy, like we enjoyed that and we quickly follow that. Great. But then there is something very deeply rooted. Something is being altered in our mind. The impact is so deep within. Right? So the totality of their idea of colonizing, right? The corporates, their idea of bringing in their perspective to your foreground, to your household. That, my dear friends, is that new media culture. They have beautiful strategic plans. Beautiful plans. I mean, we all know, right? And we all also know how our data gets spread, how we leak our own data in order to build his empire, the corporate's empire. Because, okay, let's think of one practical. I mean, whatever I'm trying to say here is not something new. We've been experiencing this. We go to supermarkets hoping to buy one particular thing, but then we end up buying a lot of things. We don't really have any intention of buying any of those things, but then we go to buy a pen, we go to buy few things, but then you've been charmed. The moment you step in, your eyes fall on something and you wanted to get that. Right? So the global markets function in such a way that it impacts dramatically. It influences us dramatically because we've been accustomed to the practices, to the orientations given by those corporates, colonizers probably. Right? So naturally, this new culture, and who is following this new culture? We are the ones, right? We are the ones who are following this new culture. We imbibe the characteristic traits of the foreigners, the corporates, and we enjoy that as well. We are comfortable also, right? So, suddenly I remember one story. In our school days, probably you would have also learned. There was a frog. Okay, there was a frog, and there was a boiling water, right? A pot, a vessel, and I was boiling, and this frog by mistake jumps in, and the next second, as we go for that reflex, when we touch something which hurts us, we go for the reflex. Similarly, the frog also jumps out. Great, nothing, no problem. But then you have a warm lukewarm kind of water, and now the frog jumps inside. It's comfortable. right? It's relaxing. It's so happy. It's going for a swim without knowing the fact that, like the induction is still on, right? And at one particular point, what really happens is the frog will not be able to jump out of it, right? Exactly, that's a kind of a strategy the corporates employ, right? That's the kind of the real strategy being employed by the the powerful, the corporates, the colonizers. And of course, we have internet, right? Of course, this is one big, probably boom. At the same time, it is also binding us. It is also fettering us. We need to understand something very clearly here. The moment something gets into the internet, it becomes global. Internet, net, is equal to naked. That's it. I mean, it's like so transparent. You drop in a message, you drop in a photograph. That's it, right? It's global. And what about the advertisements which we find in the internet? Just imagine that you're browsing and looking for some furniture, right? Otherwise, some t-shirts, any of the attires for that matter. When you go for a page, when you try to browse one particular page, you will have a very tempting, options, just flying around in every direction, hitting your eyes. Our intention was to get into some particular thing, we wanted to buy something, we wanted to get something, but then you have so many accessories which come along with the thing which you are trying to buy. And we are somehow tempted to buy that. We are somehow tempted to get into that. We take the bait. And when we take the bait, okay, so I think the YouTube thing will also be a classic example. When like you relax and you wanted to watch a song or something, it goes on like a train. Some of our friends, usually students, used to go for the train thing in your status, WhatsApp status. So many things will come one by one, and you will be so engrossed with that. Time will fly away like that. But then you got that bait. You get stuck. You really get stuck. No way you're going to come out of it, like the frog, the second frog. We are done, right? So, I'm exactly not saying or communicating any negative message about internet. We know that so many good things are also happening in the internet. We learn, even this forum is happening through the modem, which we are talking against, So things are happening. Yeah, we'll move on. So this is one interesting slide which I want you people to just have an effect of, right? The total effect of e-colonialism, right? What are the things? Like you have the power, which is held in one particular point, like with few people, they establish the power, and every other person, we are into that web. The domination, they dominate us. There is this language competency, right? The influence of their slang. And we are so much interested to replicate, copy, imitate their perspectives, their culture. We so love to embrace their culture, failing to understand the diamonds which we have missed to look at. Blue diamonds, probably, which we fail to notice, right? We always are looking at something which is really shining, but we don't know. But we really don't know. Okay, so but you cannot deny the fact that we've been so much colonized. We've been so much in the grip, in the power of the electronic media, the mass media. You know, even, I mean, that starts with kids, my dear friends. That starts with kids. You name it chocolate, you name it some toothpaste, you call it whatever, you know, like so many fanciful one-liners are there to, you know, like if somebody is going to say that dishu, then of course, you know, the boy is really interested to go for a pepsodent, right? The influence is too much, right? The influence is too much, and somehow I think we need to live with that. Now, let's move to another set of this electronic colonialism. We were talking about the influence of this electronic gadgets. Now, let's talk about, okay, it's, you know, it's very difficult to go for a clear-cut difference between this electronic and digital. Electronic colonization and digital colonization. Probably we'll find it difficult to go for a clear-cut difference. But then, look at this particular quotation. Phenomenal one. I mean, probably it has a lot of truth in it. One who owns the data owns the world. One who owns the data owns the world. What are we talking about here? What is this data? Okay, so the big brother is watching. Probably that was one idea which I had when I kept this particular picture. But then every single message which you type is a data. Every single message, every single communication which you have through this electronic gadgets, mediums, is your data. You upload so many personal information. For example, you go for you go to some big shops, and the first thing which they'll ask you, you know, during the time of paying, you know, like cash, you know, that time they'll be asking whether you have a card, you know, whether you have a card, and you will say, I think somebody has. Yeah, and of course you'll be saying, no, I don't have. And the next moment, the particular, I mean, those guys, they'll be asking you, would you mind having one? And you will be tempted to ask them again, do I have to pay? And if that particular person is going to say, no, it's free, then you will say, okay, go for it. And quickly you give all the data, you know, your name, your date of birth, blah, blah, blah. And like, it's there. It's been registered. Not that we haven't given our data elsewhere. We have given our data every single place, right? In every single place we have given our data. But then somebody is owning that. Somebody is owning all those information, right? And that particular person is not a very poor person. It's a wealthy, a powerful one. It's a very powerful one, right? So this digital colonialism is the decentralized extraction and control of data from citizens with or without their explicit consent. Sometimes, you know, with their consent, they themselves will write. Sometimes, even without their consent, your data is being robbed from you. Information about you is being robbed, right? So many memes probably you would have also read about posting all your information in your Facebook, stating that I'm going to Kodaikanal for a week, I'm going to spend my time there, and you put, you know, you paste all those things in your Facebook wall, and you know, memes probably you would have also read it. And there comes a burglar, you know, like after seeing that particular post, okay, this particular house is empty now. This will be the ideal time for me to go and rob, you know, data. Very powerful. And of course, this happens through communication networks, through communication networks developed and owned by the capitalist tech companies, right? They are the ones who hold absolute power when it comes to data. They have absolute, the entire record is with them. They have it with them. They are powerful, right? So maybe let's see how they are powerful also, right? So if we wanted to label this colonialist, colonizer, I think they are digital. They are the ones who colonize us. Though there are so many varieties of data, right? They might not need everything, but then they know what to take. But then they clearly know which one will fetch them extra money. They'll know that. They'll know that. Right? Now, let's look at some small patterns. I've bulleted in three different. Number one, it says big tech companies, they create a platform for harvesting data. That's number one. Those big companies, what they do is they somehow create an infrastructure, a technology to harvest data. I also happen to understand that GPS kind of a thing is also going to get implemented in our cars. Already we have this fast tag, isn't it? Similar kind, right? So your data, wherever you travel, wherever you go, every movement of you, whatever you do, it's been as simple as Big Brother is watching you. We've been watched, we've been monitored because of our data, because of the kind of data which we share. And it's not just that, if a person is going to understand, okay, this is about a person, he is this and he is that, fine. But then there comes the second idea of electronic colonization, that is influencing the mind, right? What they do is, the second step, the advertising, the consulting firms, they take all the data of yours, right? They take the highly personalized data in order to target individually, right? So during the military colonization, they didn't come here to capture individual person. If it is not for Helen of Troy, they are not here to colonize individually. They wanted to have the entire land. That's their perspective. But here in electronic colonization, their focus is just you. They individually target. We're different, isn't it? Every single person is different. Everyone is unique here. Every single person is unique, and we have our whims and fancies. And how do they know about us? How do they know about us? I want you people to just think of the social networks which you have used. Maybe let's see, Amazon. You would have used Amazon. You would have used Netflix. You would have used Prime. You would have used YouTube's. The moment you get into that app, there will be recommendations for you. A couple of days ago, you watched this video, right? This is similar to that. Probably watch this also. You will like it. And of course, we'll like it. We'll end up liking it because, that's the personal connect I'm talking about. Right? So, sometimes you would have bought a book in Amazon. Right? You would have bought a book. And there will be one recommendation column, one box will flash the moment you open the Amazon app. It will say, people who have bought this book, they've also bought this book. So you will like it. Try it. They have the knack, my dear friends. They have absolute knack in knowing your mind because they have already colonized. They learn the pattern. Right? They learn the pattern. right? Maybe like they might learn for some 2-3 months. At the beginning of a month, you go to a supermarket, you buy these many things. At the middle of that month, you go and buy different sets of things. At the end of that particular month, you go and buy a different sets of things. And they know, I mean, this as a pattern, you've been following for some weeks, some months. Now, they don't want to lose you. You know, the moment if they don't find you buying things at the start, at the beginning of a month, you know, the things which you used to buy, then you will definitely get a message telling that there is an extra offer. You know, so many things are free for the same thing which you are going to buy. And somehow, you know, we get that bait. We get hold of that bait, right? So this is beautifully addressed as predictive analytics. Predictive analytics. You know, they know what would be your next move, how you're going to, you know, perform, probably act, maybe. They know. And they are also wiser, you know, stronger, you know, powerful. So they also give you, they feed you information, they feed you opportunities so that you will find it compulsive to take the bait. Right? So the third thing, of course, we did discuss this previously. The citizens probably knowingly and sometimes unknowingly, they become the source of data. They give away the data, you know, knowingly as well as unknowingly, they are the victims, right? I believe some of you would be familiar with this game theory. You know, I really enjoyed learning about this game theory. You know, it's all about strategic interaction. I mean, they talk about the game of chess, board games. Right? If you're going to use this move, they clearly know which move to make. Right? They predict. Even before you act, they predict. Even before you spell out, you speak out, they know what you're going to speak. Right? So, artificial intelligence, booming, isn't it? So, they learn, they know how we are going to behave, how we are going to think. Right? And look at the target audience for advertisements. They know if it is children, they have a set pattern. If it is for teenagers, they have a set pattern. They connect. This is the maximum kind of a bold move a child could make. So if that is the case, how am I going to work on it? Okay, there is a plan. There is a plan. Right? Okay, off the record, I'm reminded of C.S. Lewis's beautiful work, The Screw Tape Letters. I believe some of you would have read the wonderful letter of C.S. Lewis. You know, here what happens is, there is a dialogue between older devil and younger devil. Right? It's happening somewhere, a dialogue between older devil and younger one. The younger one goes back to this older to tell about the failure. You know, he goes and tells that, you know, I tried to tempt this particular individual, but I was not successful. Right? So their intention is to get the souls for their kingdom. Right? Their intention is to get the souls for their kingdom, and a younger devil comes in the form of man or woman, and then he tries to tempt, and probably he's not becoming successful. So what happens is, he goes back to his boss and tells him, guy, listen, I've been trying to do this. I've been trying to do these many methods, but then it became a failure. So the older devil, what he really does is, he used to give a slap or some knock on his head, then he'll say, you know, you should have done this method, you know, you would have, you know, he would have taken that bait, right? The strategy. These colonizers, they are very good in doing that. They know it, 100%, they'll nail it, right? So this strategic prediction, you know, that is the essence of the theory electronic colonialism, right? That is the kind of an essence, right? Of course, there is something which these people will also be interested in sharing. Okay, I'll connect both the colonizers and the electronic colonizers. You know, there is a concept called noble savage, right? Noble savage. These companies, I'm reading from the screen, you know, like these companies claim that they want to bridge the digital divide and give internet access to the millions of people who otherwise would not have it. I'm sure that something is coming in your mind now, right? I believe that something would have reached your mind now, you know. Okay, the Geo. You remember how they started their entire franchise? They gave the SIM for free, right? They started by giving it as a free one. And the kind of reach it got was phenomenal, isn't it? Before that, for 1 month, we had only 1 GB, almost like 1 GB for a month. That's the kind of a tariff we enjoyed. But suddenly comes something, you know, they say that like 2 GB per day, right? You can spend 2 GB in a day, and that SIM is free. Only thing is you need to have a mobile phone which supports that. So everybody was with that button phone. And now, after understanding the kind of a peer pressure, isn't it? After understanding that your friend is having a big mobile with all that internet connection and he's watching a lot of films, a lot of things, you know, he's able to access, you know, he's enjoying things from it and he's downloading a lot of things, and like you're tempted to go for it and you buy, and you go and buy. You compel your parents to buy, you know, and now, I mean, that is the case with the other networks also, right? They've increased. Then slowly after some time they said like 199, then 299, 499. I think now it is 719 or something like that, right? Look at the narration. Look at the kind of their thinking. You know, they call us as noble savage power. They don't know anything, you know, like they need access. What will they do without internet? You know, it's my responsibility to give them this internet access. You know, there is a beautiful picture behind. They have a beautiful strategy and they are successful. Right? We've got that bait. Okay, so I'm not trying to say that okay, you throw all this in away and like go back to your own noble savage kind of a life. No, that's not my intention. But look at the way they try to colonize us. They have colonized us, right? So I believe you will be familiar with this picture, right? White man's burden, right? I believe you know the story behind it, right? So it's as simple as a concept like this, my dear friends. You know? The foreigners, those invaders, they now understood that the colonized people need to be civilized, right? They feel that it is now their responsibility to educate them. It's their responsibility to teach them, to make them come out of their ignorance, because they feel that they've been living a posh kind of a life and it's their responsibility to change them, right? So and they looked at this particular white man's burden as a positive one, starting with your poet, imperialist poet Kipling. I mean, he's written a poem, The White Man's Burden, right? In it, he talks about his duty to assist all these all these savages, all these colonized people who were not in a position to match with their perspective, their point of view of civilization. Right? I want you people to read this. It goes like this. Okay, I'll do it. Okay, a person says, you're so lucky because we burgled your house. Right? You're lucky here because we stole, we looted your house. There are some very nasty burglars out there. Lucky you are because we came and we looted it. If we weren't there, probably things would have been a lot worse. Right? Wolf in sheep's clothing, isn't it? Right? Look at the narration. Look at the power in the way they express. Look at the kind of their perspective. How they were able to convince people. Okay, so we now know the ugly truth behind this, isn't it? We know it now. But then, people were made to believe. People were made to, accept this colonization as their own reality. Largely because of power. Largely because of this particular, idea of whole power. I think this is one of those initial ads for Pierce and so, right? It comes in line with white man's burden, right? It comes absolutely in line with the white man's burden. Look how they view the nation. Just imagine that they look at a black complexed person. The entire land is like that, the people in that particular land, the entire people are like that. But they look at these guys and they associate this blackness with dirt. They associate blackness with dirt. Right. So I'm not going to make things, complicate things. Let's quickly, move on. What they really do is they rip off your dignity, right? They tell you who is this they, colonizers. You maybe for the present scenario, you try to comprehend it as electronic colonizers. Those powerful men. Okay, the system. It's not just men, the entire system, the power politics. What they do is they rip off your dignity, and then they'll slowly try to give you solution by selling their products. Right? They slowly come with their perspective because they have already given a beautiful advertisement. They've given a perspective. They've given a great multimedia messages, sharing it across, making people understand that black is dirt. That goes with so many advertisements. I'm not going to label one by one, but then we know what I'm talking about. Right? All those products which are trying to tell you that the kind of an experience you are having, the kind of a culture you are experiencing in your own place is not worth it. It's not worth it. You're leading a kind of a poor life. You remember the initial story I shared. The person comes and tells you, this is not the way of living here. You need to change. You need to change. Right? So what they do, they tear you apart and then they come with some glue to fix you up. Telling that that's how life, you will have to lead. They'll come with a solution. They'll come with some kind of a plan. And that plan, my dear friends, remember very clearly, it will have benefits for them, of course. It will build their empire without a doubt. It will build their empire. And we, with all ignorance, We believe that black is ugly, black is dirt, and all those things. And we look at ourselves and we see ourselves as failures, not fit, not right to be here in this place. And we lose our self-confidence, we lose our own dignity. And then we believe, if only I go and apply that particular cream, if only I buy this particular cream, if only I'm going to follow this particular life pattern, if only I'm going to dress up like this, no, the originality is missed. No, we've been ripped off, torn to pieces. And then we are trying to struggle, like we spend our entire time trying to fix ourselves back to our original self, which, my dear friends, we know clearly it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Like the broken glass, it's not going to happen. Right? This word, okay, fine. Let me bring to your notice a beautiful story by Toni Morrison. I'm sure that some of you would have, many of you would have read this, right? If as students, if you hadn't got any opportunity of reading this particular text, please do grab and please do read. This is by a Nobel Prize winner, Toni Morrison, right? So here, I think somebody's mic is right. Okay, so here we have this. We were talking about this repeated mass media messages, isn't it? We were talking about that. Same thing happens here. Similar kind of stuff happens here. The stereotype, the repeat, the repetition. There is a small girl. Her name is Pecola Breedlove. That's the name of the small girl, and every single person in her family hated her because of her complexion, because of her skin's color. It's an Afro-American backdrop, but then Pecola is considered the ugliest of the ugliest, something like that, right? 11-year-old girl. She looks okay. The influence of advertisements, there is one rosemary soap, and the powder, and every thing, and she's so fascinated towards those things. Okay, but then let's also try to understand the mind of this girl, because mind is the place where they colonize now, right? They are very clear to hit the right spot. They know where to really look for opportunities, right? So this particular girl is living a life filled with unpleasant experiences. Parents they don't love, friends in school they don't love, they make fun, and she comes to a conclusion that there can be two different options, right? So she tries to list them out, and she says, number one, I should do something to make people love me, right? I should do something. This is her desire, like I should do something so that people love me, respect me. Give, like they don't even have to give respect, they don't, at least if they are not going to scold, at least if they are not going to make fun of, that in itself is a great thing. Many a time we also do the same, isn't it? We also do the same. We make fun of people without knowing the fact at that particular time your friend, you were trying to pull the legs, he or she might not express the displeasure, right? But then it hurts. It hurts. If a small smile, probably you might a small giggle. If that is going to disturb the peace of somebody, I think it's time we keep ourselves. We don't giggle, we don't smile. It's better. Right? So she's like really experiencing the pain of this loneliness, this unloved kind of ambience. Right? And the second thing she asks for is their parents always fight, and she wishes that like she wanted to like vanish. She wanted to disappear. So, yeah, so these are the two desires, and now she understands that if people, if they are going to, I mean, if I have to provide an opportunity for people to love me, I have to change my complexion. So the skin, I've been trying using this. Okay, the poor little girl didn't have any opportunity of using that rosemary, the big soaps and all. But then she is so fascinated with the cover pictures of a beautiful girl, and she also has a doll with a blue eye in it, and every single person loves the doll. No, here we have an individual, a person. But then she feels that I'm not loved by people. But then this doll is being loved by people. So she begins to go for all those fancies, and she says like, if only I have some access to this blue eye, if only I got this blue eye, if somehow by some magic, something like if I get this bluest eye, maybe people will love me. You know, the stereotyped message. Sometimes it might look very silly for us because we haven't faced the kind of a trauma the girl had experienced. Probably among us, there might be one, we don't know. It's time that we are polite with people. You know, it's time that we share love. It's time that we show respect. You know, so the well price, it's not an easy thing. You know, it's with value. You know, it's with intensity. A beautiful novel. I wanted people to read, and there is a tragedy behind it. Probably I'll leave it. You know, let me not spoil it. Fine. The next word which I wanted to talk to you about. I've been talking a lot of incidents. I've been giving you a lot of incidences, and every single place where this colonizer is raising his hand or showing his power, and every single place, you call it military colonialism, you call religious kind of colonialism, whatever might be, one thing stands tall, and that is this hegemony. You know, power. The dominance of one state within the confederation, dominant, and this dominance is largely by one's consent, right? So somehow we are forced to, and in some other places we somehow yield to. That's a beautiful Italian Marxist, Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci. You know? He investigates and he asks a question. Why the ruling class was so successful in promoting its own interest in society? Right? A vague theory comes behind that. But then he asks the initial question. Why the ruling class is so successful in promoting its own interests? Right? It's successful. Powerful. Right? They somehow convince others that their interests, their culture, their language, their religion, that's the best. And it's high time that you follow. Because I'm talking this with a burden, you know, white man's burden. With a burden I come to you. I want you to elevate your standard. You know the hidden agenda. Hegemony. Sometimes not by force, not by even active persuasion, but then they know the knack, my dear friends. The subtle and inclusive knack. Right? The method, the strategy, and they do capture. Right? So Antonio Gramsci is the one who promoted the concept of cultural hegemony. I believe many of you would be aware of that. So here it propagates the value system and norms of the capitalist, all the powerful, and how they okay, so the narration here is about the power of language. You know, using language, they conquer. Using language, they get really deep into our minds and hearts. Right? They make you believe, they somehow create an ambience where they make you believe that what you're doing is nonsense. Right? And they direct your attention to some other thing, they call that is common sense, yeah. Follow that. Don't you have common sense? You know? And that, you know, if somebody is going to ask us the same question, don't you have common sense? And like we become annoyed and like, what is that? And once again, yeah, we follow prey. They have their agenda. They have their predictive analytics. They have done the analysis. They know, you know, if I'm going to talk it like this, people will behave in this fashion. The game theory. If I'm going to work in this fashion, you know, I'll be able to reap benefits in these areas. Look at the balance. Look at the balance. A beautiful picture, isn't it? Look at the balance. I'm sure that if you're going to weigh something like this, right? It's only natural that the majority, you have so many people here. It is the side which really has to have weightage, isn't it? But then look, power drifts towards the other side. Right? The domination is happening in the other side. Right? So the powerful people, they fix the agenda. They tell you, they instruct you, sometimes in a harsh way, sometimes in a subtle way. And we follow prey. And we clearly follow prey. I want you people to pay a little more detailed attention to this particular picture. You know, once again, this is by Antonio Gramsci. Like the ideas behind Antonio Gramsci, not the cartoonist. Look at it. Your medium is giving you a message. Your medium, you know, the electronic medium is going to tell you that war brings peace. Who says so? A powerful person who has a lot of cannons, a lot of weapons, wanted to sell all those things. Who says that? And we believe that. Right? And there is one another perspective, you know, one another point of view where it says daily shopping makes you happy. Who says that? Not the person who doesn't have a shop, isn't it? Right? The medium is with the powerful, hegemony. The medium is with the powerful. Poor people are just stupid or lazy. If you're poor, you know, yes, you know, they have an agenda. They have an agenda and they play in ways, you know, they walk in ways that they convince you using the bait, using all these advertisements. They make you believe that whatever they are expressing there in the advertisements are true. And we take the bait. We clearly take the bait. Very powerful medium. And we've been colonized. And many a times, we ourselves, we are also colonizers. Right? We also have these techniques, strategies, in order to manipulate sometimes, in order to make things done, you know, like we know the knack. Right? We are also part of this system. Right? So, like, yeah, you know, very powerful medium. a very powerful, hegemonic, controlling, big system is there to colonize us. And of course, they are very powerful and rich. What now becomes of us? We're living in this world, and somehow we've been accustomed to all the effects of this electronic colonialism. And what happens? We become a different person altogether. We become a different person altogether. Black skin, white masks. Black skin, white mask. Right? And these two people are saying, these guys are the same person. Only thing is the complexion is now different. A different kind of a hairstyle, a different kind of an attire, a different kind of probably earrings. Everything is taken off, and tie is being added to his attire. And of course, who is labeling all these things? The powerful. And somehow we are forced to be in that flow, hybridity. Right? So we become a different individual, and that is us also. We're not becoming a different person. We've changed. We've transformed ourselves into a different being. Like there is one. Okay, so I've come somewhere at the fag end. There is a beautiful poem. I believe you'd have learned somewhere in your schools or else in textbook by Vikram Seth. Frog and Nightingale. I believe some of you would have read this beautiful work, right? There is a frog. There is a bog, a kind of a pond, and the frog is like rocking its life and like making the lives of other animals miserable, right? Using its coarse noise, but it's happy. Right? Like they are trying to restrict this frog, but they're not able to. Right? The other animals, the other small animals, they are not able to restrict this one. And this one continues to sing. He feels it might be a cacophony, but still the frog continues its happy, luxurious song. One day, what happens? There comes a nightingale, and it comes with a beautiful song. It sings a beautiful song. And everybody in that bog, they are fascinated. They've been listening to the croaked sound of frog for ages. And now they are listening to a beautiful song of nightingale, and they are impressed. So impressive. And frog is also listening to that. Frog is also there, it's stunned because the nightingale is singing so beautifully. And he is so much annoyed because Nightingale has taken his place. Right? So the next day, and Nightingale is so pleased with the kind of an applause it has got from the entire crowd. So it did continue to sing long, right? And it was happy. The next day, quietly, your frog is going to have a personal rendezvous with the Nightingale. They two meet. So the frog initially tries to praise this Nightingale, and Nightingale says that, okay, did you like my song? And then what happens, the frog says, yeah, I like it, but then you need to have a little more practice, if you really wanted to be be like me, because I'm a great critic, if only you have some extra training, if only you have some more practice, probably you will be the greater. Okay, so the Nightingale will be saying that, I know that my song is this much, but then it's mine, it's my song, fine. But then the frog says, no, you can be even more. So the frog now ties a memorandum of understanding with the Nightingale. Okay. So it says, okay, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you song. So you just have to pay me a little, okay? So the money is not going to be a big issue for you, but then you will have to train yourself, you'll have to really spend the entire time as I instruct. And of course, from the next, okay, so the Nightingale is so impressed here, poor bird. It'll address this frog as you are Mossad in disguise. Come to help me. Right? Guys, I want you people to connect it with whatever I've been trying to say in the past. You have so much of this technique, right? Maybe I'm not going to call which one as a colonizer, which one as a colonized. Well, maybe we'll think and ruminate, and probably we'll try to understand it for ourselves, right? So now what happens? Every single day, this nightingale is going to sing its song, practice, and the frog is not really happy about it because, oh, okay, it's jealous, of course. It's really jealous, right? It's really not very pleased to have nightingale becoming success and all. No, it's jealous. Now, it tries to make this bird sing in a high note, as matching the croak sound of the frog, right? So poor bird, it tries night and day, and there is a cold time. Even during that time, the frog will be compelling the bird to sing, like in order to reach the kind of a glory it would really aspire to achieve in the future. So the bird will try singing, and one day finally what really happens is it couldn't really take that high pitch, and in that moment itself it falls dead. It dies. Right? The next day, the frog becomes the boss once again. It begins to sing its own song and irritating the entire crowd with its noise. Okay, I'm not going to really tell you how to look the colonizers, the perspective of the strategic plans used by the frog. Maybe who's a colonizer here? We don't know. I'm not going to give you that. But then I believe Vikram Seth was so good. Like his poem was so impressive. He was able to really make the right note of understanding the effect of colonialism. Right, a beautiful poem. Fine. So with this, probably I'm going to call it a day. How do you consider yourself? How do you see yourself? Right? Many a time, like Pecola breed love. We as an individual, we are colonized. Like electronically, we've been colonized. So many data, so many things will tell you that if only you do like that, you'll be a better prospect in your life. How do you see yourself? There is a beautiful picture right in front of you. A cat, it looks into the mirror, and the cat is able to see a lion of himself. Right? Is that what really you want to see? As you look into your mirror, is this Superman? Is this superstar? Is that what you really want to look like or imitate like or become? My dear friends, celebrate your own self. You're special, right? Every single person here is special. Celebrate it. Live your life peacefully, right? Live your life, like life is a gift. Let's enjoy it, right? Let's really put our hearts and soul in living our life to the fullest. Everybody here, we are special. God bless you all, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Once again, I would like to thank the department, the head, the secretary, the principal sister, the coordinator of this webinar, Angela ma'am, Melwin is here, and all the and the entire department. Congratulations! Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for your impressive insights and ponderings on decolonialism. Very much relatable, and it's indeed an intellectual feast to all. Now, let's move on to the Q&A session. Queries are welcomed from the participants. Participants can raise their queries on live, or they can be posted in the Gmeet chat box or in the YouTube chat. So I'll read the question. There is a question from the chat box, sir. I'll read it for you. It's a question from Sijo Joseph. Are we completely doomed or lost in the wilderness of e-colonialism? Or are we starkly enslaved by these merchants of e-colonialism? Is there a conscious, wanton, and deliberate mechanism to extricate ourselves out of this catch-22 situation of e-colonialism? Sir, you have,
Sir, you're muted.
sir, kindly
You're muted.
unmute your device, sir.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So, that is a big question, like huge question. Um, Lots of thoughts have been put in one single question by Mr. Joseph. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are we completely doomed? Uh, we are still living, we are still living in the same age. Probably we have so much of fanciful things around us. It's for us to choose and pick. The internet is going to provide us so many things. The gadgets, they're going to provide us so many things, right? But we do have a choice. Okay, gone are the days. Probably we somehow are colonized because so many peer pressures are there. It's not easy for us to walk, free from all those peer pressures, right? We've been fettered. Of course, we are fettered, but then we have a conscious choice. We really have a conscious choice wherein we can choose whatever we feel will be good to have a peaceful existence. As we try to live our lives, we'll just take whatever is positive, hopefully.
Yes, sir. And another question from the same person. So, don't you think that it's a typical way in which Eurocentric narratives is thrust down our throats by the European colonists to brainwash us and also coerce us to dance in accordance with the tunes they produce?
Of course, yes. Of course, we blindly follow their custom. You talk about language, you talk about their culture, we talk about their attire, the way they speak. We are kind of replicating them even today. We are still replicating them. So, as you rightly said, we are actually dancing to their tunes. I believe I got that answer right.
There is yet another question from Ramaswamy Javahar. Sir, how do you look meme creators' manipulation on people through social media?
Wow, interesting question, isn't it? Very interesting question. It's
Yeah.
as interesting as the post-colonial influence, right? The post-colonial, I believe we know the difference between that post-colonialism and post-colonialism. The post-colonialism here we have an attack on the colonized. So now we are like doing the reverse business. Memes are like that, Memes are, there is one beautiful saying once again by C.S. Lewis. He says, you when you try to pull down devil, blame devil, he'll be angry, right? If you are going to throw stones at him, probably he's going to angry. But if you are going to rip his dignity, if you are going to make fun of him, naturally he's not going to be in that particular place. A very proud guy. Same is the case here. Like we are trying to fight back. It's a kind of a reverse business. Like the soap example which we saw. Now, like we are giving the same. I mean, making those guys eat their the same medicine. Yeah.
A question from Dr. Sophia. Can second generation diaspora be grouped under e-colonization?
Second generation diaspora. You mean, okay, the person who's there in foreign? Right, like actually we are also following. I mean, forget about the diasporic, not just the diasporic, even our generation, we are also falling a trap for that. Right? We are not going to exclusively call the diasporic people since they are in that country. They are in the Western country. Imagine that their parents are there in the Western country. They might follow their culture. They might follow the systems, their way of life, their language. They might follow it. But what about people who are living in our own place? They are also trying to do the same. Right? So this.
Dr. Vinila Dennis, could you please mute your device? Dr. Vinila Dennis. Thank you.
So as I was saying, it's not just the diasporic. Even we are in the same shoes. Our generation, they are also replicating as this is one thing. I was talking to you about that mask. You remember in one slide where I was talking to you about the loss of innocence? You remember the masks which we wear? What really happens is we try to, our generation, our younger generations, they've tried to replicate, they try to follow the Western culture altogether. Right? So in no way we are going to separate the kind of diasporic young generation from our generation, because our generation is also moving towards the perspectives, the lifestyles of the Western country. So not just the diasporic, even our generation, they are under the same track now.
Next question from Nisi Karunya. Can you explicate colonialism in light of the concept of post-truth?
Merlin, I was not able to hear, sir. There is some problem with your connection. Can you repeat the question, Merlin?
Sir, am I audible? Am I audible now, sir?
Yeah. Yes, Merlin.
Okay, so I'll repeat the question. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Merlin.
Okay. Can you explicate e-colonialism in the light of the concept of post-truth? Can you explicate e-colonialism in the light of the concept of post-truth?
Okay, so we are bringing in post-humanism, post-truth here. Sometimes probably when we look at those two walks of life, they might look parallel, but then they have their own differences in their theory. But yeah, they go hand in hand, to some extent. From some perspective, yes, they go hand in hand.
Okay. The next question from Frederick. What about e-colonialism in education?
What about e-colonialism education?
In education.
What about colonialism in education? Is that the question?
Education, yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is the question.
So, yeah, there are so many texts these days. I mean, in syllabi, this post-colonialism as well as the imperial ideologies are very much present in many of the syllabi. I mean, in universities as well as in autonomy colleges, we can definitely see a lot of resourceful texts in the classrooms. I mean, we've been discussing this. We've been talking about the influences of colonialism, and we also are talking about the resistance, the kind of the fight the kind of protest which we try to have against those colonizers. But then the kind of the problem which we have right in front of us is tricky, because we somehow love being in that swim tub of that frog, the second frog. You remember? We are comfortable. So there comes the problem now. Since we are, oh yeah, in educational, yeah, of course, we have so many avenues. We have orientations, right, in our syllabi. And I'm sure that in all the universities will prescribe, because this is one problem which is very common in our place, which we have experienced. So I don't have any doubt that our education system will reflect and orient on colonization. Yes, we have it very much in our curriculum.
Okay, the next question is from Arshad Tina. Sir, can we relate this phenomenon of e-colonialism to Baudrillard's idea of hyper-reality?
Baudrillard's idea of hyper-reality. Okay. Maybe I'm not that authoritative to really comment on the idea of hyper reality here, but I think the underlined text, so we can relate. We have that the truth. Even the previous question which we had about the post-truth will have some connotation towards this hyper reality. Because the idea of truth here, the idea of truth, the idea of culture is being layered with so many ingredients. I think somebody's.
Anamika ma'am, could you please mute your mic, ma'am? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Sir, please, sir, you continue.
Yeah. So, the truth is being layered with so many components, and you have a different perspective of truth altogether, right? So, a hyper reality, once again, has some deeper conscious ground of reality in it, but then, in some way, probably it's different, like the exposure is kind of different. But then, like I told you, I'm not that, I still have to learn more on that. So please excuse me on that.
Okay.
But I'm
The
sure
next
that we
question
can
is-
definitely relate it. We can sure that we'll be able to relate it, because that phenomenon, it shows that it has so much of similar grounds. Yes. Yes, Melwin.
The next question is from Ramaswamy Jawahar. Sir, can you kindly share your opinion on capitalists becoming colonizers of their own culture and tradition?
Colonizers of their own culture.
Their own culture and tradition. Capitalists becoming colonizers of their own culture and tradition.
Okay, but uh, like a capitalist in our place, he's also following the same culture as you and I, right? But then he's colonizing us, right? It's not about a Westerner coming here and colonizing. It's all about the hegemonic. It's all about the powerful. The capitalist, of course, is powerful. So, Mr. Jawahar, I'm sure that uh, whatever electronic colonialization we have experienced in this generation, it's largely because of the capitalists. Because of the capitalist, isn't it? So I think yes, this capitalist is not just a market from China, right? They're also big players. US is also a big player without a doubt, because they also invest in our place. They also invest in our place. But it's not just the foreigners who invest in our place. Even our own people, they do step into the shoes of a capitalist. Jawahar sir. Yeah.
The next question is from Shanmuga Priya. Sir, what is your advice to avoid from this e-colonialism?
Avoid from this, there is a saying, life is a journey between B and D, isn't it? From birth to death. The way we live, but there is something in between B and C that they call as choice, isn't it? We have a choice. We really do have a choice. So it's up to us, if things are going to give you happiness, if things are going to give you peace, if things, whatever you're trying to do is not going to harm anybody, I think we can pursue that. If it is not going to disturb the peace of somebody else, if it is not going to hurt the people like Piccola breed love, I think, yeah, we can endure that. Happily, we can do that.
And yet another question from Ramaswamy Jawahar, similar to the previous question, like, do you mind giving suggestions to get free from this e-colonialism? Again, the same thing, I think.
Everybody is a part and parcel of this colonized system, isn't it? So, I mean, we are the second kind of a frog who are happily swimming, and then maybe sometimes it will be very difficult for us to completely shy away from reality, but then we can very well connect with the ground realities. Maybe like we go to the shops, we try and buy things from big superpower, like supermarkets and all those things. Like we have so many systems, and we also understand that the same kind of a vegetable is also being sold by ordinary vendors, the real farmers. Maybe with that thought process, we can change our attitude. We can get back to have some conscience towards our own lifestyle. So maybe I'll not call this as an advice, but then that is one way of life probably we can think of pursuing, because that's going to help. Because look, if there is a person who is really into trouble, they might be farmers, the small scale industrial people. Those guys are into the trouble because of the big fish. Those guys who come from powerful hegemonic state. So maybe we can think how we need to go about, maybe like how we need to respond to the reality. Anyhow, we are going to buy things, buy products which are being projected by those big shots. We might step into some shops and we are going to buy things, even in internet. We will be buying. I don't know when was the last time I went to the real bookshop to buy a book. It's been ages. Right? It's been, I mean, that's the case with many of us also, isn't it? So we get a good printed book for a cheaper rate. So like we prefer the electronic, the apps, the Amazons, and all those big giants in the markets. And yeah, maybe we can be considerable. We can be really thinkers and empathetic towards the real ground workers, who are suffering because of the influences of the big powerful people. Maybe we can think about it.
The next question is from Caro Velma. Sir, kindly throw some insights on online teaching, online classes, online tuitions. Example, Byju's. Does that come under e-colonialism?
Okay. So technology replacing teachers. But then now we have a powerful system which says that since they have brought in Byju, that's a good app. I mean, it's really doing justice to this educational platform. I believe that you will be agreeing to what I'm trying to say, because we have that is also another one powerful system, my dear friend, right? And and they are very much successful in the market now. They are very much successful in the market now. They have a strong root. I mean, if the advertisement is very strong, the kind of advertisement Byju's get is really amazing. You have all the tops stars coming in favor of that, and the quality is also not compromised. When you look at it, the quality is also not compromised. They are also finding a way. They are also finding a strategy, a method of altering the kind of education. So, of course, we are dealing with this online mode of teaching, mode of learning, and I'm sure that whoever is really into this learning process will find it really, it cannot replace the real teachers, because we love to do that face-to-face teaching as teachers. So we might always vouch for that kind of learning to happen. But then these guys are really big in market, right? That's the next big firm. You know, so things are happening towards them. People are moving towards the electronic, even like Ranjus. Yeah.
Okay. The next question is from Arshad Tina. Sir, can we say contemporary film and multimedia trends are trying to manipulate the psyche by subconsciously inculcating the imperialistic trends, thereby seizing minds to the aid of the capitalistic colonizers?
100%, without a doubt. 100%. We are in this virtual mode these days, isn't it? Films are becoming part and parcel of our lives, and we try to replicate them. I mean, even in the olden days, we try to replicate the superstars, the heroes. We fell for their style, and we wanted to follow their patterns. What can we say? We have so many platforms open. Things like Netflix. You have amazing opportunity of watching so many films, and they do disturb the kind of a culture which we are experiencing in our own worlds, and of course, 100%, it influences us. Yes.
Lastly, an interesting question from Rima Mary James. Can we apply e-colonialism in novels? What are the things we should explore in such a project?
E-colonialism in novel, the first thing is we need to find a good novel. I mean, this has become so part and parcel of our lives, right? This has become, it'll be an interesting study without a doubt. It'll definitely be an interesting study. The concepts, when it comes to the game theory, when it comes to the structure, of course it's going to, but then you will have to have that great a novel. You need to identify that novel. That is going to be a very tedious task, because the kind of a life which we are sharing, literature mirroring life, it has become so normal now. Novels, there are some. The elements of colonialism, definitely you will be able to notice that, and the films are able to portray it better, because the visual, through the visual, we get, of course, books and films, they go parallel. They go hand in hand. So it'll be an interesting study without a doubt, right? But then sometimes it might look shallow, because we are practicing that kind of a life altogether in our day-to-day thing, isn't it? So sometimes we might find it very mundane. We might not find the elements of electronic colonialism as a sublime thing to have your deepest hypothetical questions, and looking for some gaps, because we've been part and parcel. But then, of course, if you could find a text, which could provide you with the elements of electronic colonialism, well and good. It will be a wonderful thesis, my dear friend.
Okay, the next question. Sir, Shakespeare's Tempest can Shakespeare's Tempest be considered from the perspective of e-colonialism?
If we are going to make a film Tempest now, then I think it is possible. As a text, because technology was not that very sound during that time, isn't it? So we had books. But then if we are going to look at it from maybe a customized storytelling, right? If there is a customized storytelling about the same plot, using the scenarios, using the circumstances which we experience in the 21st century, right? Sometimes Caliban might also have a gadget in his hands, and like your Star Wars or all your Avenger film, probably. But then the real text, the work by Shakespeare, it might fall short because colonizations were there, elements of colonizations were there, but not the electronic. The idea of electronic, like controlling the minds, probably you could find that element, but then electronic, we didn't have electronics at that time, since maybe maybe like the gadgets, so maybe let's ponder. Maybe some electronic thing. Maybe like we might think ship could have some kind of a mechanical stuff, machinery stuff. So it might be difficult in that sense also. So challenging. It'll be challenging because they didn't have that electronic gadgets during that time. But then if they are making a film, very much yes.
The next question is from Komala. Can ads be taken for research? Advertisements.
Definitely yes. Definitely yes. I don't know is whether Ms. Komala is a student or a researcher or a staff. But then if the question is from a student's perspective, I would vouch for it, because many a time whenever I see my students endure a project, it's always a novel. They always pull out a novel for research. They feel that novels have so much of essence in it. But then definitely advertisements, like if you are into this electronic, the colonizations, definitely yes. Advertisements play a very, very important role. Right? That's become a part and parcel of our life, isn't it? Even look at it, like we are using some meat. Once again, a couple of years back, we didn't know anything of this meat, isn't it? We've been advertised, we've been taught, we've been oriented, and then we become somebody else. Advertisements definitely play a role. So it would be an interesting research, absolutely interesting research, because you will be able to connect with so many ideas and relate it with so many age-wise, gender-wise, color-wise, so many binaries are there. You can definitely work on. Yes.
Okay. The next question is from Janvi Kulkarni. How can we avoid becoming slaves to e-colonialism?
Actually, we are still swimming, right? We are still, we are in the flow. Maybe the kind of choices, like we are in, my dear friend, we are in with the influence of technology. So it will be very difficult for us. I mean, just give me this as an answer. Will we be able to keep our mobile if we are going to lose this particular stuff? Do you think you will be having peace in your heart? The question is, the answer would be definitely no. One day, if there is a shortage of internet, if suddenly your WhatsApp is not going to function for a day, don't you think we'll feel a kind of worst experience in our life? We're so accustomed to using all those gadgets. We are so accustomed to becoming that kind of a person. We've changed. We've come a long way, and that has become part and parcel of our life. It has made our life so easy. It has given us so much of comfort. It has reduced stress. Like fan, electricity. Like your ACs. It has made our lives easier. So it's kind of difficult now to turn back and go back to our past. But then that's once again a very thin line wherein we are standing, very slippery ground. Uh, it will be difficult, but then we'll try to make sure that we are not fettered, right? We'll try to at least come out of the shackles, though we are still swimming in that water, boiling water, warmth, lukewarm.
Uh, that's all the questions, sir. So thank you, participants, for your enthusiastic participation, and thank you, sir, for taking the questions, all the questions with patience.
Participants are asked to fill the feedback form which has been posted in the Google Meet chat box and YouTube live chat.
Now that we have come to the end of the session, I invite Dr. J. Josephine, Organizing Secretary and Assistant Professor of English, to propose the vote of thanks.
A delightful evening to everyone present here. On behalf of all, I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose vote of thanks on this occasion. Gratitude is the fairest blossom which springs from the soul that make the happy both the giver and the receiver. First and foremost, I thank the Lord Almighty who has designed and refreshed our souls with his sweet stream of blessings. His unfailing love keep us march forwards towards better tomorrow. I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to our chief guest, Dr. S. Melwin, Assistant Professor of English, Bishop Heber College, Trichy, for encouraging us with your words of wisdom that radiated a source of energy within us. My gratitude to the speaker for gracing the occasion and sharing his opinions today. I render my sincere thanks to our principal for awakening the desire and passion who support us as a leader to reach the pole of success. I extend my sincere thanks to our secretary for your periodical monitoring and solid support in all aspects as we grow. I feel proud and honored to spell out words of thanks and share my gratitude for the dignitaries from various institutions for being a part of this event. A special mention to our respected Dr. G. Patricia Alfin Nirmala, Head Department of English, being the catalyst that inspired us to do our best and stand as a pillar of power. Behind each successful program lie the many efforts of our devoted faculty. I would also like to take a minute to thank Mrs. Angeline Sonna, coordinator of this webinar series, and all our distinguished staff for their tremendous contribution to the development of this department. Lastly, I would like to thank the wonderful participants who came in such large numbers and made this session memorable. Thank you so much for your cooperation. Once again, I thank all for your cordial cooperation. Thank you.
The path of light is thank you, ma'am, for your note of gratitude. The path of light is quest for knowledge. Once again, I register my note of gratitude to you all for connecting with us for the intellectual field. May your quest for knowledge continue to live on. We shall take our today's leave and join together in the upcoming webinar on experimental learning on alternative approach to teach literature in a training room. Wish you all success and luck. God bless.
So thank you so much, sir, for the mind-blowing session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity also. Thank you.